What is it about big family gatherings? Just brings out the worst and the best in people. Hey folks, this is kind of a random one. This is one I've wanted to do for a while, and I'm just biting the bullet and doing it now. So, a while back, I think I talked about this movie like way back when I used the green screen, and I definitely was not presenting like this. But the film Summer Wars is a 2009 movie. It's an anime, and it's directed by Mamoru Hosoda. And it is, at present, still my favorite anime film that I've seen. It replaced the original Ghost in the Shell, which held that position for decades. But I really love this thing. And there's a lot to like about it. It's ultimately a pretty basic story. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Boy meets girl. Girl kind of tricks boy into coming to her family gathering and posing as her boyfriend, actually fiance, but she doesn't tell him in advance. And all of this is to please her great-grandmother, whose birthday it is that everybody is gathering up for, so that the girl can be assured that her grandmother isn't worrying about her. Boy is awkward. Boy is falsely accused of unleashing a computer virus that threatens the entire globe by going after the single system that runs just about everything from social media to taxes to major government organizations. Boy's avatar in said system gets taken over by this virus. Members of the family try and stop it within the virtual world, led by a kickboxing rabbit. Virus Boy is accused of unleashing was actually developed by girl's uncle. And ultimately, the fate of the world is determined by a Japanese card game, which I have to admit that for as many times as I've seen this movie, I still do not understand how it works. Boy gets girl at the end, kinda. You know, that classic. We've all heard that one. There's a lot I really like about this movie. I think possibly my favorite thing about this movie is the fact that if you were to tell people how it started, and that the first scene sets up a cute, slightly awkward teenage romance, and then it ends with betting the accounts of literally millions, if not billions of people in a virtual card game in order to stop a computer virus from potentially destroying the world. Yeah, that's some escalation there, I'd say. It feels actually quite natural when you're in it. But what I want to focus on for this is I want to focus on the family aspect. Because, can we be honest here for a second? The cast of this movie is ridiculous. It is preposterous how large the cast is. And I frankly do not remember all their names. I will never remember all their names. And no, this isn't just I don't remember Japanese names thing. No, there's too many of them. I would get them confused with each other. I remember some. I remember Kenji, Natsuki, Kazuma, Wabisuke, Shota. Oh god, yeah, I remember Shota. But a lot of them ultimately I remember for their personalities and where they fit in the family dynamic more than I remembered their names. Like, I frequently forget the great-grandmother's name. And she's not an incidental figure. And she's great. I don't usually remember her name. And there's a bunch of people I'm like, okay, I know who you are, and I know where you fit. There's a lot. But the thing is, like, the size of this cast, that should be a series. A cast this big really should be reserved for an ongoing series that is, a dozen hours a season worth of stuff. It's one movie. It's a pretty packed movie, but a cast this large should not work in a single movie. It really should not. And it should not feel as cohesive as these people do. That's what I want to focus on. I don't get to talk about great family depictions very often for a number of reasons. Partly because a lot of things that lean heavily on the idea of family unfortunately lean into the somewhat toxic notion of, well, you have to forgive them, you have to love them, they're your family no matter what. And that's a dangerous notion. I have a lot of problems with that. But even setting that aside, I'm an only child. I never even had siblings, really. I had step siblings as I was going into high school, but it's like my formative years, very much an only child. I'm not used to the notion of large families. I had cousins. They were in Florida. So the whole dynamic of large family gatherings is not completely alien to me, but it's not really something that I can relate to. And yet I see this family, I see the way they come together, I see the way they interact, and everything just clicks, even though I can't relate it all that much to my own experience of my own family. Why? Well, I kind of feel like the simplest trick that the movie pulls is giving them a unifying trait. What we're talking about here is the Jinouchi family. Now, not all of them have that last name. There's been some marriages, some have, but that's generally how they are kind of referred to collectively. And they have a long history in this particular part of Japan where they reside, but also just of being real stubborn, of being fighters, of being community minded. You see that sprinkled across the family. There are commonalities that make getting a handle on all these people, including like everyone from a great grandmother in her 90s to these small kids, you get a sense of them and they all fit together because they've all got some form of that fight in them. Whether it's the kids just flatly trying to tackle Kenji when they think that he's a criminal, or the fact that like a lot of their jobs are in community positions, like helping run the water utility, driving an ambulance, being a firefighter, working in the defense areas of the government. There is this general sense of community and service to community, but also just a sense of fight.
Come again? You mean you haven't done anything yet? Then get off your ass!
I mean, that comes right from the top. The great grandmother is, she's got some real fight in her. Like, feisty would be drastically underselling it. But that is sort of the commonality. And even as you get all these little quirks and nuances, and you can tell some of them have a bit more bluster and some of them are a little bit more reserved, but there's still that sense that's spread throughout here. That's kind of what is passed on as a mentality of the family. And even those who marry in, they marry in either because they also have that or because they really appreciate that about whoever it was that they married. And it also manages in the short runtime, and again, in a runtime that is doing a lot, manages a lot of the messiness as well. Like, this is a family that by and large, they love each other and they're there for each other, but you can always tell little tiny exchanges. You get a sense of, there's a history there, and somebody go, there he goes again. But it doesn't feel like the kind of canned line it might otherwise, because you get to see what that means and you get a sense of, so that's what that one's like, and that kind of gets on your nerves a bit. You deal with that a lot. You think it's kind of cute. Nobody exists in isolation. They're constantly in dynamics with each other, very few of which are drastically different from any of the other dynamics they have with anybody else, but subtle changes, subtle differences. Like, yeah, you all love each other, but the way that you two connect is a little different from the way that one connects with that one or that one or that one. And I could go through and break down literally every interaction, but frankly, it would be a very boring way to go about this. I think in a lot of ways, the best way to highlight this is by pointing out the one who doesn't fit. Wabasuke, the black sheep. There has to be one. Now, Wabasuke is given a backstory that I'm slightly iffy on, although it does make sense. And what I mean by that is he is the illegitimate child of the great-grandmother's late husband. Now, she did raise him and did accept him to the best of her ability, but it's very clear that there's always been a certain amount of bitterness there. And yeah, that's the one who turns out to be the jerk. Now, he's not without nuance. There's a lot going on. You can tell he's kind of bumping up against a lot of resentment he's had from various parts of his family. I don't love the idea that not being legitimate within, as far as the circumstances of his birth goes, and somehow he becomes the jackass. I don't love that, but we get enough of a sense of what that meant for his life to understand how he ended up where he is. And he's successful. He's wealthy, certainly compared to everybody else. And they're not hurting. They're in decent shape, but they also talk about how In the past, their family had a lot more wealth and resources than they currently do. They're kind of existing on a fraction of what familially they used to have. And Wabasuke is the most successful. He lives in the city. He works in tech, as I alluded to in my kind of jokey summation. He's the one who developed the computer virus that ends up causing a lot of trouble in the back end. But that part of it, as much as I love it, and I love all that stuff. That's not what I want to focus on right now. And he has a cockiness. You can tell that in a way he's kind of, well, he shows up to go, I'm better than all of you. Will you please acknowledge that? And no, they won't. They largely resent him, and it comes to a head in a very particular way. And I know I put a spoiler warning at the front of this, and I know I've already talked about some of the plot specifics, including some stuff that happens towards the end, but this I would consider like a legit spoiler because this hit me, and this has always stuck with me. So when it is revealed that Wabasuke was the original developer of this computer virus, to be clear, he didn't release it. He developed it and sold it, and then it was some country's military. They released it in what was supposed to be a controlled setting, and then it got out. So the release of it is not his fault, but he did design and program the thing in the first place. So as everything is going to hell and this thing is wreaking havoc, well, once the family finds that out, yeah, they're ticked. And he does not take well to that being turned on. But for all the damage he's caused, there's also arguably an overreaction. The woman who was his adopted mother literally threatens to kill him.
On your feet and die like a man.
And he leaves. And later on, she dies in her sleep. And the scene that gets me every time is when Natsuki, who is the young girl in the boy meets girl scenario, and who is one of the few family members who thinks well of Wabasuke, partly because she hadn't seen him since she was younger, and she had a very affectionate, he was kind of her favorite uncle, and she hasn't been close enough to him to see sort of how everything has gotten more and more sour over time. And as a kid, she probably didn't recognize what was there. But she calls him. He assumes he's being asked to come back, to apologize.
Not going back, Natsuki. As long as she's living there, that house doesn't exist to me.
And then Natsuki says,
Granny is dead, Wabisuke.
And he freezes. He completely locks up. Because for as much anger, justified or not, that he had towards this family, towards her in particular, the way I've always read this is he always thought there'd be time to figure this out. I think part of why this means so much to me is it does not feel like you have to forgive because it's family. It doesn't feel like that at all. It doesn't feel like the story's punishing him because he failed to forgive. I think it is highlighting, even after what just happened, after she threatened him with a deadly weapon, he still thought somewhere in the back of his head, there's still time. This didn't work, clearly, but there's still time. And being told that no, time's up. That argument you had, that's the last time you will ever see her alive. That hits him like a ton of bricks.
Granny! I need to see her!
That was in many ways the moment in which I fell in love with this movie. And I think it is the moment I fell in love with this family. Because they're not idealized. They're messy. They have been fighting. They're not all great. Shota is a freaking mess and keeps causing problems. He doesn't mean to. He's trying to do well in the same kind of way. He's trying to help the community. He's a cop. Shock of shocks. He keeps making things worse. There's also a weird line with him where, like, when he finds out that Natsuki supposedly has a fiance, he has a line, at least in the English dub.
Damn, I was too slow.
He wanted to get with his cousin? I don't know what's up with that. And like, I've tried to look into it. I can't find a lot of conversation around it. It seems to be something people just ignore. But yeah, that's a weird bit. But they also gave it to the literal biggest disaster of a character. Yes, even bigger than the guy who designed a computer virus that almost ends the world. The cop is the biggest disaster of this family. I don't know, seems appropriate to me. But to see them interact, to see their dynamics, their love, their frustrations, to see them fracture, and then to see them pull together. There are few movies that end as triumphantly, as fist-pumpingly yes, as seeing this family all come together. And it's not like you didn't think they were capable of it. Clearly, they're a family that's very good at supporting each other. And yet still, it feels so triumphant. It feels magical. I've never seen a family of this size depicted in a film where they all felt like individuals, but also made sense as a complete unit. I'm used to things where a bunch of the characters just feel like ciphers, like that's just a body in the background. I'm never going to know anything about that one. You learn stuff about literally all of them. Will you be able to keep it straight in your head? Well, if you're me, no. But I know stuff about all of them. I know that one of them's out playing a baseball game and that his mother is the most supportive and excited fan of what he does ever. And you've got the gamer and you've got his sensei, who is also a member of the family, who helped teach him martial arts to help him deal with bullying at school. And you've got the enthusiastic kids, and you've got the one who's just always sneaking food, and you've got the ones who take charge and the ones who know when to sit down and listen, and there's a different feel and a different interest, and this one likes that or this, and then a bunch of them bring up the fact that they used to play video games in the past. We're like, oh yeah, we did all do that together, and it's just natural and flows, and nobody is a cipher. Nobody's a blank slate. Nobody's just a body in the background. And they all fit. They all form this wonderful, messy, loud, delightful family. I've never seen family dynamics on a large scale captured as well as this movie does it. Not in anime and not in anything else. I adore this movie. But it captured something with the dynamics of its family that I don't generally see. And honestly, I would have expected to have been lost on me just based off my own family experience, which does not map onto this at all. And yet, there's something special. What's your favorite family from, let's stick with anime? You can go with the show if you want. And yes, I will accept found family. I did go with a family by blood in this case. But you know what? Throw some stuff out there. I don't know. I enjoy anime, but I'm not super well versed in what's out there. So people will probably come with maybe even better examples. But I really should. I meant to talk about this back during Thanksgiving, so it was at least vaguely thematic, family gatherings. But I missed it. And I'm like, I still want to talk about this. I love this movie and I love this family. What are your thoughts on this? Whatever they are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills. But you don't have to worry too much about that. There's links to other things I do in the description, so feel free to check those out. But really, what I want you to remember is that you are beautiful. You are valid, and you are loved. You are the council. I am just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. And I'd like to thank my highest supporting patrons, Robin Moore, Zubin Lafula, Goddess Elida, Oliver B., Tarak, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Ruth, Solitary Pictures, Ulrich Bogdan, Geek Filter, Linda Walters, Jen, Auntie808, Becky Sparks, Frenabulax the Poodle, Robin Powell, T-Love,
Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperole, Dave Hall, Quite Bearish, Rosalind Bennett, Pau Barabajagal, and Mara G. Yes, we do have new rats in the house. Whoa, you want it? We actually have two. This is Brownie. I couldn't get Sprite to come out, but say hi. Thanks for the support.